Okay, so I know that this is already a topic that we've explored. We've gone over the repercussions, we've gone over the aftermath, we've gone over the new guy. But when it comes to the Calgary Flames recently letting go of Darryl Sutter, their head coach, we have ourselves even more shrapnel that we still have to go out there and pick out. Because when it comes to The Athletic and their most recent article, take a look at this piece right here. It was published earlier today by just The Athletic. This is not an article by one writer, it's apparent that it's written by a bunch of people. NHL Offseason Trade Board 2.0, the latest on the Jets, Leafs, Flyers, and more, and how it impacts the NHL market. Link is going to be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this article. As always, it's the protocol, but because this is The Athletic, we're not going to go out there and screenshot what it is that is written on this article. Instead, we're going over onto Twitter, and we're going over onto Reddit, because there were a few conversations stirred up by people on these platforms because of what was written about in this Athletic piece. Again, if you have The Athletic, you can read the article yourself, but for folks who don't have it, we're going to go out there and see what is publicly available online. Starting out with a tweet made by James Johnson, who publishes Calgary Flames material and who went out there and read this article. He goes out there and tweets about the piece, saying this: The Athletic confirms that none of the Calgary Flames 2024 UFA class were going to stay if Darryl Sutter was coach. Huska is a popular choice, but will it be enough to change their minds about leaving? It's crazy that all 7 guys were going to leave if this report is true. Should be an interesting summer. Now, what exactly is it that James is referring to? Well, let's go over to the cap-friendly page for the Calgary Flames and see where everybody lies. So this offseason, at the time of recording this audio, you've got guys that are UFAs in Trevor Lewis, Milan Lucic, Nick Ritchie, Troy Stecher, and Michael Stone. When it comes to next season, though, if you read all of the UFAs, you've got Mikael Backlund, Elias Lindholm, Tyler Toffoli, then there are some RFAs, but we'll talk about those later, Noah Hanifin, Chris Tanev, Nikita Zadorov, Dennis Gilbert, and you could say Kevin Rooney and Oliver Shellington, too. There are RFAs you have to re-sign next year in Dylan Dubé and Adam Ruzicka, and a bunch of these names are pretty significant additions to your team. Backlund, of course, is maybe even the next captain. Elias Lindholm is a player that may get upwards of $9 million next season, who really knows. Tyler Toffoli was your top point scorer this season. Noah Hanifin is a rock on defense. Chris Tanev is your shutdown beast. When it comes to the UFA class of next year, there are some very significant names, and James goes out there and talks about how some of these guys would not have wanted to come back. Excuse me, not some of these guys, how all of these guys were not going to come back had Darryl Sutter stayed the coach. Now, there was some controversy surrounding this tweet, and this was posted onto the Flames subreddit, where the first comment goes out there and says that, hey, he's sensationalizing it. The article names only 3 guys, not the entire 2024 class. And then there's a reply going out there and saying this: the article is unclear if we take what it says literally. The section that James Johnson went out there and talked about says this: once Huska is confirmed, Conroy, who has made it clear that he won't let a player walk out the door as a UFA the way Johnny Gaudreau did last summer, can go to the 7 players a year away from UFA status, including Backlund, Lindholm, and Hanifin, and bluntly ask what they have in mind. None of these players would have stayed if Sutter had remained coach. Huska would be a popular choice, but will his presence be enough to change their minds? That's what the article goes out there and says, and it's a little unclear whether the none would have stayed if Sutter had remained as coach is referring specifically to Lindholm, Hanifin, and Backlund, the names that are mentioned, or just the 7 names a year away from reaching UFA status in general. Although, based on the way it's written, I'd lean towards all 7. I doubt The Athletic meant this when they wrote it, though. And so labeling out these guys verbatim, Backlund, Lindholm, Hanifin, even if the article is only just relating to these 3 guys, those are 3 important players that would not have wanted to stick around had you kept Darryl Sutter around, and that sort of highlights the impact that Sutter had on this team. In a negative way, I mean. Sure, the team was good last year, 2nd round, coach of the year, etc., but no, that didn't last for too long. He overstayed his welcome, he didn't adjust on the fly, the way he treated these players and the way he didn't adjust was damaging to the way the team performed. And hearing now from The Athletic that at the very least you had Backlund, Lindholm, and Hanifin, all of whom would not have wanted to stay had Sutter been around still, that's a pretty significant thing. But if the article is saying 7 players a year away, then that also includes Toffoli, Tanev, and Zadorov, and this doesn't really fit. Mostly because Tyler Toffoli is a guy who has liked Darryl Sutter this entire time. I mean, the guy had a very good year under Sutter this season, so go figure. But also, Tyler Toffoli is used to that. He played with Sutter in LA, he won a Stanley Cup, he's got the experience, he knows what Sutter is about, and he's done that song and dance before. And after all this has come out, everybody's talking about this, everybody's reading the article, it's a really big piece on The Athletic, if you hadn't already been able to tell. With this all in mind, part of me starts to question, where does Darryl Sutter go from here? We know he's a lot older than most NHL coaches, but assuming this guy still wants to stick around in the National Hockey League, who's going to go out there and hire him? I mean, okay, that's probably a bad question. We know that anybody who has experience will always get themselves an NHL job sometime down the line, but realistically, upon seeing this, where 7 potential players of your UFA class in 2024, a bunch of them who happen to be really good players, all would not have wanted to stick around for this guy after 2 seasons, after a good year and then a bad year. That bad year was so damaging to how this coach was perceived in that locker room that they would not have wanted to stick around at all after that. That's pretty impactful stuff, honestly. And for Darryl Sutter, I mean, we get that the guy's not really going to be affected, like we know that he doesn't really care about this stuff, but still, if it bleeds into how other people view him and his coaching, how he's going to be able to come back soon, I think there should be some reason to worry when it comes to Darryl Sutter and how he's going to be able to rebound from this. So you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're a Calgary Flames fan, what are your opinions on the idea of Tanev, Toffoli, Zadorov, Backlund, Lindholm, Hanifin, all potentially wanting to leave because Darryl Sutter was still there? Because you can Sutter, these guys are probably more prone to sticking around now. What are your thoughts on how impactful that sort of sentiment is and what this means for your team in general? How do you think this should be perceived? And how relieving is it now to hopefully be in a position to change, get better, go forward, and hopefully keep your players around? We'll see what happens when they do all become free agents in 2024, but you still have to negotiate with some of the guys that are on your team right now. Who knows if you're going to bring Lucic back? I mean, that doesn't really seem like a ship that's going to sail anytime soon, but who really knows? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Calgary Flames, the coaching situation. The article is going to be linked in the description if you want to go ahead and read that. Also, just question in semantics too. From the way it's phrased in the article, do you think it's referring to all 7 of the UFA players in 2024 not wanting to stick around under Darryl Sutter, or just the 3 that are highlighted, Hanifin, Backlund, and Lindholm? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Juraj, and bye.